Vibe Show 97.9. Welcome to the show, man. Listen, I'm super excited tonight. Why am I super excited? You're wondering, why am I super excited? I'm super excited because I got one of my favorite actors coming on the show tonight. A legend, an icon, man. I'm talking about the one, the only, Mr. Bill Moseley. Ugh.
Hey. All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Bill, man. I am just like, you gotta excuse me, man. For real. Like I'm having a moment here, man. I'm like so super excited to have you on the show. And for me, my team, we just want to just thank you for this amazing opportunity.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And as you can see, I wore my good Texas Chainsaw Massacre t-shirt tonight, just in honor of that. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Bill, like, man, do you get this all the time, man?
Not from my wife. It says, Bill Moseley, now empty the garbage.
Right, right. Man, I'm just so grateful, man, and really appreciate the work that you've blessed us with over the years. It's just truly a blessing, and you're truly an amazing talent. And you've been in this game for quite some time. I wanna go back to before we dive in. I would like to know, has acting always been something that you've been inspiring to do, or how did you get into it? When did you fall in love with becoming an actor?
I actually, when I was a kid, my family, we lived in outside of Chicago in Barrington, Illinois. Right. And my parents were part of a play reading group. So different parents would get together, and one would basically host a dinner party and then a play reading. And they would get into costumes, but they wouldn't memorize the lines. They'd hold the book. So it was play reading. And I was always cast as the kid. If the play needed a kid, I usually got, called at least as one of the kids, if not the only kid. And, that's really where it started, just the very beginning, just, getting people to clap for you. That was really helpful.
Right.
And I did act in school and in grade school and high school and college. But when I got out into the cold, cruel world, I come from a railroad family, so the idea of like actually doing that for a living really seemed, crazy. And it was certainly not supported by mom and dad, who wanted me to be, I don't know what they wanted me to be, but not enough. So I actually started off my career as a writer. I wrote for magazines, and I lived in New York City. I wrote for magazines, and actually, I started off in advertising, and that was a little soulless for me. So I moved into, interviewing scientists. I worked for a magazine called Omni, and I worked for Interview Magazine and some cool magazines in New York City. And then one summer, I was out working on a ranch, trying to get back in shape because I partied a lot. And I was working with a crazy 16-year-old who was like a sugar freak, and we were digging ditches and doing whatever you do on a ranch under the hot sun in Wyoming in the summer. And he would pound like the fudge sickles and the frosted flakes, and then he would go into what I called the sugar deliriums, where he would just start almost like speaking in tongues. I mean, he would start singing top 40 songs and TV jingles and stuff. And one day and I usually would just kind of turn him out, but one day we were working together, and he's going like, "Hey, Captain Crunch," doing his crazy stuff. And all of a sudden he said, "The Texas Chainsaw Manicure." And I was
oh, wow.
Because I was a huge, always been a huge horror fan. And the Chainsaw Massacre, TCM, really freaked me out when I first saw it back in like 1975. And this kid said the Texas Chainsaw Manicure. And I went back to my bunkhouse. It was a ranch. And I wrote out like a 5-minute scenario. A woman goes to a beauty parlor, gets her hair done. She's sitting under the dryer. The beautician says, "Would you like anything else?" One goes, "Yeah, I think I'll have a manicure." And then you hear manicure. And then all of a sudden, behind that sliding steel door, you hear this chainsaw revving. The door slides open, and out comes Leatherface. And this poor woman's under the dryer, like, freaked out. And the Leatherface comes over and starts sawing on her hands.
Wow.
And, I was just thinking, wow, that's awesome. So I went back to New York City. I gathered some friends, about $500. We took over a beauty parlor on Staten Island one Sunday and shot the Texas Chainsaw Manicure. And I gave myself a cameo at the very end. What happens is she actually she passes out from fear. Then she comes to, and she's like, no, and she looks down. And she's got like a fabulous manicure.
Wow.
She goes out to tell her husband, who's waiting for her in the pickup truck, and that was me dressed as the hitchhiker from the original Texas Chainsaw. And she goes, look, honey, I got the best manicure ever. And I go, hey, that's great, honey. We should celebrate with some head cheese. And I looked at the big hunk of head cheese, and that was basically the end of the movie. Well, to make a long story even longer, a friend of mine saw the manicure and said, he at the time was an up-and-coming screenwriter in Hollywood, and he loved the manicure. And he said, look, I have an office right across the hall from Tobe Hooper, who directed the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
And my friend said, give me a copy of this and I'll take it into Tobe. And he did. Tobe watched it, and Tobe loved it. And Tobe, I also got Tobe's number, and I called him up, and I identified myself. And he said, yeah, Bill, I love the manicure. Now, who played the hitchhiker? Right. And I went, well, that was me. And he said, well, if I ever do a sequel, I'll keep you in mind. And 2 years later, I got a call out of the blue in New York City from some guy who was actually the screenwriter of the Texas Chainsaw 2. And he asked me if I had an agent and how to get in touch. And I got the part. I got the part without even applying for it because I did that Chainsaw Manicure, that 5-minute film years earlier. So that's how I shifted careers.
Right. Man, that's just great right there. Because I was going to ask you, what was it about watching the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre that was inspiring to you? It was something about it. I seen a quote or something. It was something about it that, when you went and watched it, that really, really, really resonated with you. I would like to know what that was.
Yeah, it just scared the crap out of me. That was the big resonating.
Right.
I mean, I was always a horror fan in college. I had a horror film series that I showed people, horror movies, classic Hammer movies and Frankenstein and all kinds of great stuff. So I was like a horror fan. And one day I was working in Boston right after getting out of college. And I remember driving by, it was in Billerica, Massachusetts, north of Boston, driving in my car. We go past I go past a shutdown drive-in. And there on the marquee, it says Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I just thought, what the hell is that? I've never heard of it. I just thought, I got to check that out. That just sounds insane. And sure enough, I found it. It was playing on a double bill in Boston. It was the second film of a double bill, starting with Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee.
Really?
And I saw it in the kind of the combat zone of Boston. And, it was an old movie theater. It was Sunday afternoon. It was filled with people yelling at the screen, kick his ass, Bruce. So it was like a kung fu crowd.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, here comes the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and really, literally from the opening scenes of it, there's a kind of a tortured violin sound, and you get this slow strobe of like a melted corpse. And it's just like, what the hell is this?
Right.
And from that moment on, nobody said a word. I mean, it sucked the air out of the theater, including my ear. And I completely flipped out. I flipped out, and it really, it disturbed me. It was deeply weird and disturbing, even though I thought I was, like a hip guy. And I ended up not really being able to shake it. So what I decided to do was to see it as many times as I could. So I figured if I saw it 5 times, I get so familiar, here comes this thing and here comes that thing, that it wouldn't really have the same effect on me. And it just kind of dug that deeper into my head. It just freaked me out even more. And finally, the only relief I ever got, I did the Chainsaw Manicure, and then I got hired to play Chop Top. And I remember I was down at the Brook Hollow Motor Inn in Austin, Texas, which is where we all assembled to start production.
Right.
And all of a sudden I'm standing there kind of like, what the hell? I'm not even an actor, you know, right. I'm kind of an actor, like, oh my God, what am I doing? And all of a sudden this car drives up and the door opens and out gets the cook from the original Texas Chainsaw. He goes, hey, how you doing? And I just go,
my
oh my
God.
God, it's the cook.
Yeah.
And in that moment, everything shifted because no longer was it me versus the Chainsaw family. I had now joined the Chainsaw family.
Yeah.
And everything completely changed. And I feel great. I felt great ever since.
Man, amazing in that movie too. You know, the thing that that I really like about your acting range, it's just your every character that you play, you make it so believable. Now, did that come from years of experience or on the job experience, you would say?
Well, I would say a little bit of both. I mean, I had the privilege of studying with an acting teacher named Harry Master George in Los Angeles. And Harry was all about what he called natural law, which was basically like, you know, make it real, I guess is the easy way to say it. There wasn't really any kind of technique of breathing or, you know, it's basically an open-eyed meditation. You read the script about 4 times.
Right.
So you get real familiar with your character, the other characters, what's going on. And then you just make it real. You don't, you know, it's not artificial. It's not like you don't get into what's my better side and all that other stuff. You basically make it real because you just, you know, you get so familiar with it and then you just act naturally. I guess that's the best way to say it. It's easier said than done because you got, you know, 20 people with microphones and cameras and makeup and the director and the screenwriter is looking to see if you've got the lines right. So there's a lot of distraction, but if you can just focus in and just say, you know, I'm Chop Top today and I'm about to hit that guy with a sledgehammer or whatever and just focus on it, make it real. Everything else seems to fall into place.
Right. I get it. I definitely get it, man. Now,
and there's a lot of reality out there. So, I mean, you know, and the other thing, just let me just quickly say, a lot of people say, you know, how can you play those dark characters and how can you go to those dark places and, you know, all this other stuff. And how do you play a psycho, basically? And what I tell them is that it's very simple. You know, as a psycho, what you have to think is, I'm the only sane one in the room. And if you do that, if everybody else is crazy, I'm sane. You know, however you are, that's how it works. If you start playing crazy, you kind of look like you're playing crazy.
Right.
But if you're the only sane one in the room, in spite of however, you know, weird stuff you're doing, then it works.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. Now, you and Rob, you know, how did you meet Rob? Because you guys have a great relationship. And you've done great movies with Rob. The chemistry is definitely there. How did that relationship develop and blossom into the things that we're seeing today?
I met Rob in October of '99. I was emceeing a little horror award show for Universal Pictures in Hollywood, and it was called the Igor Awards. And a friend of mine did publicity for it and hired me as the MC. And I ended up I emceed it dressed as Chop Top. I had a plate, you know, on my I had a makeup guy make me up as Chop Top. I had like a little ragged tuxedo. I did the whole thing in character. And one of the award recipients that night was Rob Zombie, and for his music videos and his music. And so I go, and here he is, Rob Zombie. And out comes Rob, and I'm holding a little statue, and I'm dressed as Chop Top. And it freaked him out because it turned out he was a big Chop Top fan. And so, later, he got to the mic and said, boy, if you told me that was the real Chop Top, I would have said you're crazy. Yeah. And we talked afterwards. He told me that when he was backstage before he came out for his award, that he thought, that guy's doing a decent Chop Top. I mean, not great, but he's And then he comes out and he goes, "Oh my God, it's Chop Top." So thanks, Chop Top, for getting me that part. And then a month later, I got a call from Rob's manager saying, he's just had his script, House of a Thousand Corpses, approved. And do you want to be in it, playing this character called Otis Driftwood? And I said, yeah, sure.
That's the guy.
They sent the script over, and I thought, I accepted before I even read the script. And then I just read the script, and I thought, well, first of all, that's a big part.
Yeah.
And second of all, I thought, this is awesome. This is going to be a lot of fun. And it was. And we're still going strong, 20 years later.
Man, that's amazing. So it seems like, man, your situation, your situation has just been good timing, man, and just but at the same time, people still appreciate the work ethic and the work that you've been putting in too. You know what I mean? Because like you're really what I call a big dog in this game to me. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not gonna lie. I was
certainly an old dog.
I was totally horrified by when I first was introduced to Devil's Rejects, but it's one of my favorite movies and definitely a household classic. What was that experience like for you playing such an iconic character?
Well, it was the first time I'd ever played as an actor. I'd ever played the same character twice, so that was a first for me. It was also it was really interesting because it was I thought Rob was great directing House of a Thousand Corpses. It was a lot of fun to make. I thought he was a great director. We had a lot of fun working together. But then when I got the script for Devil's Rejects, I thought, this is genius, because usually, and especially in the horror business, if you make a horror movie and it does well, and you make a sequel, it's usually kind of a rehashed version of the first movie.
Right.
And so you're kind of doing the same thing, except a little different, and you're going to sell some tickets. But with Devil's Rejects, it was like, oh my God, this is completely different. This is almost, instead of a horror movie, like an old dark House of a Thousand Corpses movie, this is more like a violent crime road picture Western.
Yeah.
It was so wild to have. I remember I was over at Rob's house. We were watching the Super Bowl, probably in 2004 or 3, whatever it was. And Rob said, you're going to look a little different this time. We're going to do it again, but this time you're going to look a little different. I said, well, what did you have in mind? He said, well, and he said he wanted me to look kind of like one of the Allman Brothers. And I said, I handed him this paper plate, and I said, you got to sketch it out for me here. And so he drew this character with a long hair and this beard. Yeah. And I had never grown a beard before. And I said,
really?
Well, I said that to him. I said, this guy's got a beard. I've never grown a beard. How do you do that? Because Rob has a beard.
Right.
And he said, you stop shaving. I went like, oh, okay. So I stopped shaving, and all of a sudden, who knew that I had this beard in my face this whole time? But out it came, and then because Otis in the original, in House of a Thousand Corpses, I'm an albino.
Yeah.
I wear contact lenses that are kind of brown and red flecked. I'm kind of thin and scary. In Devil's Rejects, I have blue eyes. I'm not an albino anymore. I've got a beard. I look, I'm shirtless. I look kind of like like an Allman Brother. And
right.
And so that was pretty awesome that Rob would reimagine the three characters, keep the three characters and their relationships, but then just put them in, like, make them look different. Like Sherry doesn't do that. Her laugh from House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yeah.
She doesn't do that in Devil's Rejects. She does it once, I think. And Captain Spaulding, good old Sid, he's out of clown makeup for most of the Devil's Rejects.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different look. It was a different genre, different feel, different music, and it worked like a charm. It was, to me, it's one of the. I'm really, probably that's the most proud I am of any performance, but also that to me is the real definition of movie magic, when everything works together and it really gives the audience an incredible ride, you know?
Right. I'm not gonna lie, you know, I really, you know, I respected your work prior to that, but with the Devil's Rejects, I mean, I just felt like you stepped into another realm of it because, like, you know, and I'm trying to explain this because when I tell you, and maybe you can connect with what I'm saying, it was just different, Bill. It was different, and you made the character, even though you know they were doing the horrific things that they were doing, you made the character, it still was a part of the character that you just kind of like too, though.
Right.
Is that weird? Is that weird?
No, that's exactly it, and that's good directing, by the way. You know, and it's also like, you know, for me, what was really important was, as I said before, it's like the only time I've ever played the same character more than once.
Right.
So I consider House of a Thousand Corpses. I was still learning Otis by the time we finished, so I was kind of finding Otis. And then I remember, like, almost 3 weeks to a month after we finished House of a Thousand Corpses, Rob wanted to shoot something else. And so what he did was we did the Run Rabbit Run scene. And the run, where it's black and white, and I go, hunting humans ain't nothing but nothing. They all run like scared little rabbits. Run, rabbit, run, run, rabbit, you know, and do the whole Run Rabbit thing. And that was when I got Otis, after we had shot most of House of a Thousand Corpses. So now with Devil's Rejects, now I know Otis because I can go back to that scene. I can just go Run Rabbit, and I go, okay, there's Otis. And so it was kind of like, to me, it was House of a Thousand Corpses was kind of like, you think you're going to buy the car, you kick the tires, you look under the hood, you kind of, you maybe take it for a test drive, come back, and then Devil's Rejects was, you bought the car, now get out there and put the pedal to the metal. So I didn't have to spend any time kind of finding the character. I found the character. So it was just about, seeing what he could do. And that was so much fun, man. That's the fun part of acting.
I want to ask you too, now, from a mental aspect, Bill, is there ever like any scenes that bothered you, or anything that would bother you that may just go too far from a mental aspect? You just like, man, like when you read that, you like, yo, I don't know.
Well, when I read when I got the script for Devil's Rejects, there is, of course, the hotel room scene, the motel room scene.
Oh man, that was crazy.
Basically pistol raping, Priscilla Barnes.
Right.
And and that's outside of my normal behavior. But I do remember, being scared about that. I was like, oh my God. And then I thought, I had devised a plan. I was a sneaky coward. And I thought, I'm going to let my girlfriend read this. And if she says, if you do that, I'll never speak to you again, we're through. I was kind of hoping she would, so that I could say, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't do that. But instead, she's an actress. She's been in, like all kinds of movies. So she's a much more accomplished and better actor than I am. And she finished the script, and she looked at me and she said, it's a great part for an actor. And to me, it was like, that was it. That was what I needed. It wasn't me doing it. It was, me acting, this character doing it. And that gave me a great relief. And but I remember going to the set the day that we were shooting that scene, and I was really, freaking out. I was, out of turmoil. And I remember pulling over to the side of the road and meditating. And I saw myself on a swimming raft in a Wisconsin lake. I was lying on the raft. I was looking through the slats in the boards down below the raft, and there were some shadows of fish hanging out under the swimming raft. I mean, this was my meditation. And somehow I got focused. I got calm, and I got willing. And willing is basically just like okay, I'm scared. It's a tightrope. I could fall. There's no net. But you know what? I'm walking.
Right.
The decision has been made. I'm walking. I don't know what the fish had to do with it, but I'm walking. And so I got to the set, and I remember the first take we did. By the way, it wouldn't have worked without Priscilla Barnes. She was awesome.
Oh my God, man!
But I remember
Amazing.
the first take was really frightening. But I just, because you can't. It's a scene where you're not doing anything. You're doing it casually. Like we're in this hotel room, we're waiting for Captain Spaulding. We've been waiting hours. Nothing's going on. There's Buck Owens on TV. We're all lying around. And that's when I say, okay, Mama, take it off. What? Take off. Come on, take off your clothes. I'm bored,
Right.
So the whole thing starts from it's like trying to dunk when you're like standing under the basket. Most of the time, if there's something, if you're building up to it, you're running through the woods, you catch somebody, you've kind of got But when you're just like, okay, I'm bored, take off your clothes, and that starts it, that's even harder. And but we did it, and I guess we did it well because I walked off the set, and some of the women that were watching on the video monitors off the set were like, really kind of shaking their heads. One girl was sobbing, kind of, And I remember feeling bad in my gut, and I remember walking over to Rob, and I said, "Man, I feel bad." And he looked at me and he said, "Art is not safe." And I thought, "Wow, that's cool." That was exactly what I needed. I didn't need like, "Oh, you poor thing." I didn't need like, my dad, the Marine, going, "Come on, man, suck it up."
Right.
I needed to know that art is not safe because I don't think up to that point, I really don't think I thought that art was supposed to be unsafe. And it was really, it just blew my mind because I always thought art, it's on the wall, it's But we were making art, and that also told me we're not making a cheesy sequel to the same movie. We're making art. We're going for it here. And when I heard that, I actually it really fired me up, and I kind of like, okay, coach. And it was like, okay, Otis, get back in there. And that scene we ended up doing probably 20 times. Because, it all depends on the shot. There's a shot of the two of us in the room.
Right.
Like the master shot, the two shot, then there's a shot over my shoulder on her, then her then a shot of my close up, her over her shoulder on me. And there was a camera up in the rafters shooting. So and each of those shots has a bunch of different takes if there's somebody make a noise or if you blow a line or whatever. So so we ended up doing that an awful lot, and each time it was different. Each time it felt real and it felt different because sometimes it was I was kind of the aggressor, sometimes she was the aggressor. It really was an amazing experience for me. And later Priscilla said to me that it was the greatest acting experience she had ever had, which I thought was great because I was so relieved that she was into it and I didn't have to kind of worry about her feelings, that she was a pro and she showed up too, and really was the greatest. To me it's like the emotional heart of the movie.
Man, that part really was.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Because was it always in the cards and the plan to come with a sequel to this movie? Because now I'm not gonna lie, I thought at the end that it was over with. I mean, they blasted you guys away, which really tore me apart too, because really kind of at the end of that part, I was in love with the characters. I'm like, man, no, I didn't want them to go out like that. Maybe just go to jail. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, actually just, and I knew that you guys were going to go out like that. I mean, there's no other way to go. You know what I mean? So I knew that part of it. I didn't want you guys to go, but I thought that was it. Did you know, or any of you guys knew at that point that it was going to be a sequel, or you guys kind of thought that was it too?
We all thought that was it. I mean, for years after that, when Sid Haig and I would be at sitting side by side at horror conventions, invariably someone would come up to either Sid or me and say, "Is there going to be a sequel?" And then I would look over at Sid and I'd say, "Sid," and he'd go, "What?" I said, "Is there going to be a sequel to Devil's Rejects?" And he'd go, "Nope." And I'd say, "Why?" And then on the count of three, we'd go, "Because we're effing dead."
Right.
Yeah, we're dead, man. And people over the years came up with ideas like maybe, you went to hell and you were so bad the devil rejected you because now you're the devil's rejects. So you're coming back to earth, or, maybe, they had a bunch of different ideas. But until Rob called one day a couple of years ago and said, "Hey, let's meet for lunch. Sherry and I want to, you and Sid to, have a lunch and talk about something." And I was thinking, I wonder what's up.
Right.
And we met for lunch. They're vegan, so it was a vegan restaurant. And we're chowing away, and Rob said, we're getting the band back together. And it was a very emotional moment. It was like, wow, man, geez. Because it's been like 14 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time. But, so he said, so start growing that beard. And I'm only sorry that Sid ended up getting sick but still he was able to show up and, do his bit in the beginning of Three from Hell.
Yeah.
But it was an emotional journey, and I'm really glad that we ended up finally doing that third piece.
Man, what's it like having that type of chemistry and energy on the set like that? Working with so many different legendary actors, and everybody's so seasoned and so polished. What is that experience like for you?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Actually, when it works. I mean, sometimes you get some actors who want to do it their way, and they're very contentious, and that they're not necessarily team players, and that is whatever their deal is. For me, I've been lucky because I've worked with a lot of seasoned professionals who really enjoy acting.
Right.
And what that means is simply that they can focus away. They focus on the story, on each other. They're making it real, so to speak. And, the camera and all the other considerations kind of fade away. And that's the word ecstasy is Greek, and it means ekstasos, out of self. And that's what it comes down to. You're no longer Bill or whoever you are. You're that character. You're in that reality. You've shifted, man. You've gotten into a new place, and it's very exhilarating. It really, even if it's a scary story or a tough or whatever, when you're out of yourself and you're into some cool other character, it's really, you can't beat it. That's why acting is an art, and that doesn't happen that often, by the way. So that's why you really have to be technically sound. You have to hit your marks. You have to repeat the same action. You have to remember your lines. There's 1,000 things you've got to do technically to make that, to make for those rare but wonderful moments when you're gone. You're actually, in that movie. You're gone. You're a character. And it's funny because at the very beginning of Three from Hell, it had been a long time since I'd worked with Rob, and it'd just been a long time. And I was, in my head about Otis, like, what's Otis? He's been in jail this whole time. What am I, how do I, and because I got a lot of, praise for Devil's Rejects. So I didn't want to turn in a crappy version before, it's like, I had a lot of internal pressure.
Right.
And we were doing, it was like the first day shooting. And I'm standing in the back of a police van or something, addressing some reporters. And I have it's like a mini monologue or something. And I started, it was action. So I started saying my lines, and I flubbed a line. So it was cut. Let's try it again. What? And so, okay, action. So now I'm doing it. I flubbed the line again, or another line. So I was cut. And then Rob's like, Bill, looking at me like, dude. And I say, let me just have a minute here. So I sat down in the back of the police van, and I just was like, because I was frightened, I didn't want to, screw up and all this stuff.
Right.
And I heard this voice in my head, and it said, "Move over, Bill. I got this." And basically, it was the voice of Otis. It was the character telling me, we don't need the insecure Hollywood actor.
Right.
Lines or what's my better side and what do they think of me and all that crazy stuff. It was like basically Otis saying, Bill, get out of the way. I got this. And, I've been around long enough to recognize the voice and to obey. And I said, you got it. So I got out of the way. Bill got out of the way and Otis took over. I knocked that monologue out of the park and never had another, problem the rest of the shoot.
Man, that's great. Now, crazy. Can you give me a crazy story or a crazy moment, fan moment from the Otis character and a lot of the characters that you played? I mean, being recognized when you're out and about, is it norm for you, or does it get a little crazy at times?
I hardly ever get recognized. I live in Los Angeles, and I can probably in the last 10 years, I could probably count on not even both hands the times that somebody has said, "Are you Bill Moseley?"
Right.
That hardly ever happens. And I've lived in the same neighborhood for like 30 years, so I don't know why it hasn't. But I don't think people really, they look at me and they don't really see Otis necessarily. So I guess that's a good thing.
Right.
But there was a time like right after, I think it was right after, maybe it was House of a Thousand Corpses, and I was at a convention in Corpus Christi, Texas, and it was in an old hotel with old elevators, and I remember I was going down to breakfast. I was going up to my room somehow from the lobby, and I got in, and there was a floor plate right along the bottom of the elevator, and it said Otis in it. It was an Otis elevator.
Right.
And I looked down, and the floor plate, there was a little bit of like blood on the word Otis. And I thought to myself, isn't that a coincidence? Oh, blood on Otis. Wow.
Right.
That was kind of an internal thing. I wasn't, thinking anything more about it. And then went up to my room, and then I was coming down, and the other elevator opened, the door opened. And as I was stepping in, I looked down, and there was blood on that Otis too. And then I thought, okay, well, there's something going on.
Yeah.
And so it was about maybe 2 or 3 in the morning after a convention and dinner, et cetera. I was, in my room in bed. And I remember this voice saying, "Hi, Otis." And I don't know how they got my number from maybe they bribed the hotel clerk, and I said, "Who's this?" And this voice said, "This is your stalker." And I said, and that was the person that put the blood on the Otis plate. And I said, "Stalk me tomorrow. It's late." And I hung up, and that was, that was as wacky as it gets, I guess.
Man. Now you recently you did some stuff over there in Japan, man. Prisoners of the Ghostland with Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
What's that all about?
Well, that was really a lot of fun. My wife and I had scheduled a trip to Vietnam and Cambodia, like a tour, and so we were over there. And I had a friend who was had written this script and was producing this movie, Prisoners of the Ghostland, starring Nick Cage, and it was shooting in Japan. And it turned out that it was perfect timing, between our trip in Vietnam and Cambodia. And right after the end of that, my wife flew back to the States, and I flew on to Japan and spent the next month in central Japan, working with a Japanese director named Sion Sono, Sono, Sionsono. And he's done a lot of really incredibly cool movies. If you check them out, I think they're all in Japanese, but they have subtitles. They're fantastic movies. And, a lot of fantasy, a lot of horror, crazy stuff. It's really amazing, amazing director. And he was directing Prisoners of the Ghostland. I got this job. I got the job as the kind of the one of the bad guys in the movie. And
of course, the bad guy, Bill.
Well, but kind of like more like a Colonel Sanders character, like full of a lot of braggadocio. I play the governor, like, hey boy,
right.
Kind of big guy, but bad guy. And working with Nick Cage was really a revelation. I certainly I've always loved Nick Cage movies.
Absolutely.
And but I didn't know. I had worked with him once with Rob, actually. I met him through Rob. I was sitting at the same table when Rob and Sherry got married.
Really?
Nick and Elvis's daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, were they were newlyweds, and they were sitting at this big table. I was sitting next to Elvira, so I was chatting up.
Oh man!
So I kind of saw him across the table, and then when we did, Rob did a fake trailer called Werewolf Women of the SS for Quentin Tarantino's Grindhouse.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And Nick has a cameo as Fu Manchu in that, so I met him a little bit. I didn't really know the guy. I hadn't really been informally introduced or anything, so
right.
I was kind of nervous about it. He was a great guy, totally into it, and that's the way I like to act. I like to just go for it. He went for it, and it was really very inspiring. Really a nice guy, great sense of recall. He can really remember just about everything, which something I'm trying to work on. But he was fantastic. The script was a lot of fun. It's fantasy, it's adventure, it's crazy stuff. And somehow, they're in post-production, of course, with all the COVID. That makes it difficult. But so I think that's probably adding months on to the post-production. But when it comes out, check it out. Prisoners of the Ghostland. Oh, it's so much fun.
Being that you mentioned COVID, how has that been for you as far as your brand and being able to work? Because I know physical being, with physical, everything is physical in the acting. How has the transition been for you and your brand and sustaining the brand and still being able to get work done?
Well, that's why I love social media. I'm a big fan of Instagram. I see, thank you for follow Bill Moseley on Instagram at Chop Top Moseley. I appreciate that. I love Instagram and Twitter, probably too much. But so that's been a lot of fun just to, be on social media, kind of that sense that, you're not really quarantined or, shut up in your own home.
Right.
I love Zoom. I've Zoomed with a bunch of people, so that's been cool. I did go to a convention about a month ago in Phoenix, and I live in LA, so I was able to drive there. And it was socially distanced, and everybody had masks, and it was very cool. When I came back, I took a COVID test, and I was negative, so I was cool.
Right.
I also, a couple of weeks ago, I flew the first time since the pandemic started. I flew to Philadelphia from LA, and was the celebrity appearance at a drive-in in Lehighton, Pennsylvania, at the Mahoning Drive-In. They were showing on 35 millimeter Chainsaw 2 and 3. So really? I showed up like the celebrity guy, the Chop Top, hey,
right.
and that I was worried about flying and how's that going to work with the masks and the air recycled with a bunch of people, but I got tested after that, and it was fine too. So I've kind of I haven't lost my respect for COVID by any stretch, right. But I'm a little less paranoid. I'm smart. I'm wise about it, but I'm not incredibly frightened about it. But of course now it's spiking again, so I don't know what's going to come of it. For me, also, I'm writing a screenplay and really having fun writing. I have plenty to do between screenplay and social media, and then just walking around. I have a dog and 2 cats, wife and daughters, so there's a lot, that you can do kind of in the neighborhood locally. So it's, it really hasn't been a dull moment for me, I got to say.
Right, man. That's good. Bill, I want to thank you so much. And before we wrap up, what else could we look forward to in the future? Any other projects that you can kind of tease us with a little bit?
Well, Prisoners of the Ghostland is the big tease. I also, during the pandemic, I did my first comic book.
Really?
And so if you go to cursedcornfieldcomics.com, there's a fantastic artist named Simon Kudrensky, a Polish artist who does Spawn and Batman. I mean, he's big time. And the two of us teamed up for this comic that you can download and name your price.
Where do we get it from again?
Yes, cursedcornfieldcomics.com. So cursedcornfieldcomics.com. If you go to www.cursedcornfieldcomics.com, our first, you can download our first issue, which is a lot of fun. And again, you can name your price. If you want to give us $1,000, that's great. If you want to give us $1.99, that's up to you. I prefer $1,000, but $1.99 is fine.
Right. Man, Bill,
so I try to keep busy, basically. That's because I'm a lot of us are creative. I'm sure you do more than this.
Right.
Maybe singing, music, writing, art. A lot of us, we can't we have busy minds that are into cool stuff.
Right.
And there's plenty to do.
Right, it is. And you're also a musician as well too. You still rocking with the band? You guys doing some new things or what?
The last thing I put out was with Phil Anselmo of that band Pantera. We did a EP called Bill and Phil. Songs of Darkness and Despair. I do all the, I wrote the lyrics and do the singing on that one. And that is available. I'm sure you could find it on YouTube or Spotify. Bill and Phil is the name of the band.
Bill and
really
Phil.
Imaginative. And, I used to have a band called Corn Bugs with the world's greatest guitar player, Buckethead. And then that's also on YouTube and Spotify, etc. And I also did an album with a guy named Ronnie Sharon, who has a band called Stolen Babies. And we did an album called, the band is called Spider Mountain, and the album is called No Way Down. So I don't ever get too far away from horror, but
right.
Good music, and it's a lot of fun.
Man. Bill, it has been a blast, man. I wanna thank you again so much, man, for allowing me to scratch off my bucket list, man. Like I said, I'm a huge fan. I really enjoyed myself, and I'm so grateful and humble for this amazing opportunity. You have to come back on here again. We got to get you back on here.
Well, when Prisoners of the Ghostland comes out, I'll definitely, you check that out, and I'm more than happy to tell you as much as I can, because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we definitely bring you back on here to and we're going to talk about that. Also, before we get out of here too, with everything that's been going on, man, 2020 has been a rough year for the world, and a lot of people down in spirit. A lot of people been going through a lot of rough times, out of jobs, man. A lot of people lost a lot of loved ones, even suffering. A lot of people suffering right now. Can you leave them with some words of uplift, some encouraging words, just for anybody who may be down in spirit?
Well, I think that there is, certainly we've just had an election. I think things are going to change, certainly from the top down. I'm encouraged by that. I think that was confusing on both sides, like who was going to win. It was a pretty narrow race. I think that's going to be a big changer. I think that also I just read, recently that Pfizer has this promising vaccine for the COVID. I think the COVID really is, that takes care of the economics and movie theaters and gyms and restaurants and plane travel. I mean, everything really. If you get a vaccine in there, or you just kind of take it easy until you get it's safe to travel and go out. I think that's going to be a big deal. I think with the new president, I think there's going to be a relief package coming out, from what I understand. Again, I'm an actor in horror movies, but this is what I glean from the newspaper, right, TV, and Twitter. So I'm optimistic. I got to say, I think that whatever has gone down this year has been crazy, especially in middle of Los Angeles. And but I think it's necessary. I think there was these forces that just were clashing or needed to come to a head. I think it's just been a crazy year, but I think it's probably in the long run good for not for everybody, but maybe good for the country. Right. That we're back on track, and I think things are going to be a heck of a lot better. I sure hope so. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. Bill, again,
I'm optimistic, but
I'm definitely
I'm a monster, so
I'm right there with you.
Salt.
Right. Anything else you want to put out there, Bill? You want to put your social platform, put your Twitter out there, your Facebook or whatever? I have
all of that stuff. Yeah, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It's all at Chop Top Moseley, MOSELEY. So you just look on the bottom of your screen, and you can follow me on those 3 platforms. I do have a website. It's a weird website that's been around for a long time, called Chop Tops BBQ, choptopsbarbecue.com. And if you go on to the barbecue, you can always play the crazy piano, and that's a lot of fun. So I would really recommend. You can get autographed pictures there and a bunch of different things, but go to Chop Tops Barbecue and play the crazy piano, and you'll have a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Bill, too, whenever y'all start promoting the movie, you get any promotional content or anything like that, if you forward some of that stuff over to us, we'll promote it on our side as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a manager, as you know, and she's great, and she's very good about doing that, following up, making sure that everything gets to where it needs to go. So absolutely. And I'll be on the rooftops just going, "Prisoners of the Ghost Land, check it out."
Absolutely, man. It's the one and only Bill Moseley. Thank you again, man.
My pleasure.
Look, we wishing you more blessings and more success with everything that you're doing now, Bill, and in the future, man. The stars is where you're headed, Bill. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Vibe Show 97.9. My special guest, the one and only Bill Moseley.
Dog will hunt.
Thank y'all so much for joining me and my special guest. Shout out to everybody that was on the live today with my special guest, the one and only Bill Moseley. Y'all make sure y'all go follow him on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and check out that website. That's going to be at Chop Top Moseley. Also, you guys make sure that you go over, if you are not subscribed to the Vibe Show official channel, make sure y'all go and hit that subscribe button, man. We got more exclusive interviews that's going to be coming up. We need that love. Show some love. Hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. Also, you guys can go over and follow our exclusive Vibe Show 97.9 website. That's www.thevibeshow979.net. That way over there, you can keep up with all of the latest interviews. You can also hear the latest music streaming over there, and we also have the latest news updates as well. Also, rush over there to the App Store and download the Vibe Show 97.9 mobile app, available in the Google App Store today. Listen, you guys make sure that you continue to protect yourself out there, man. Put your mask on, keep your hands clean. sanitize, do whatever you got to do to stay safe, man. The pandemic is real, man. Vibe Show 97.9. I'm your guy, Kano the Don. I love y'all. Y'all be safe. I'm out.